The iron glows white in the forge, its heat distorting the air above it like a shimmering ghost. In the stone chamber of a Bohemian castle, the year is 935 AD, and the smell of burning coal mingles with something far more terrible, the scent of fear. A woman stands in the shadows, watching. She is Drahomíra, Duchess of Bohemia, her face carved from ambition and fury, her eyes reflecting the firelight like polished obsidian. She does not flinch as the executioner lifts the tongs from the flames, their metal tips glowing like fallen stars. Tonight, loyalty will be measured in screams, and treachery will be paid for in flesh. The prisoner is dragged forward, chains scraping against stone like the rattle of bones. He is a nobleman, once proud in his embroidered tunic and polished boots, now reduced to trembling sinew and desperate prayers. His name was Radislav, a counselor who whispered poison into the ears of Drahomíra's enemies, who plotted to place her son's throne in the hands of priests and foreign kings. His hair is dark and matted with sweat, his face pale as winter snow, his lips moving in silent pleas to saints who will not answer. The guards force him to his knees, and the stone floor is cold against his shins, cold as the grave that awaits him. Drahomíra steps into the light, her gown the color of dried blood, her braided hair coiled like a crown of serpents. She speaks, and her voice is soft, almost gentle, more terrifying than any scream. She tells him that mercy is a luxury afforded only to the faithful, that betrayal is a poison that must be burned from the body, that his pain will serve as a lesson written in flesh and bone. The prisoner weeps, his tears cutting clean lines through the grime on his cheeks, but she does not look away. She has seen men die before. She will see many more before her own end comes. The executioner approaches, a mountain of a man whose face is hidden behind a leather mask, his bare arms marked with old burns and scars from years of service to power. He holds the tongs before the prisoner's face, letting him see the heat rippling from the metal, letting him understand what is coming. The crowd of witnesses, nobles and servants alike, presses against the chamber walls, their faces a mixture of horror and fascination, unable to look away from the theater of cruelty unfolding before them. Some cross themselves, others simply stare, their humanity eroding with each passing moment. The first touch of the tongs against flesh produces a sound. No human should ever make a scream that seems to tear through the very fabric of the soul. The metal sinks into the prisoner's shoulder, searing through cloth and skin, the smell of burning meat filling the chamber like a grotesque feast. His body convulses, every muscle locked in agony, his back arching as if trying to escape his own skin. The executioner pulls, and flesh comes away in a smoking strip, leaving behind a wound that weeps blood and clear fluid, the exposed muscle twitching in the open air. Radislav's scream becomes a howl, becomes a prayer, becomes nothing but raw animal terror. But the executioner does not stop. The tongs return to the flames, are heated again until they glow with renewed malevolence, and then they find new purchase on the prisoner's chest. This time, the metal grips and tears, ripping away chunks of flesh with surgical precision, each pull accompanied by the wet sound of tissue separating from bone. The prisoner's voice is failing now, reduced to ragged gasps and whimpers, his eyes rolling back in his head as his mind tries desperately to flee from a body that has become nothing but pain. Blood pools beneath him, dark and thick, spreading across the stone floor like a crimson lake. Drahomíra watches without expression, her hands folded calmly before her, a statue of royal indifference. She has orchestrated this horror not from cruelty alone, but from necessity, or so she tells herself. In the brutal calculus of medieval power, mercy is weakness, and weakness is death. Her enemies had sought to strip her of influence, to paint her as a pagan witch corrupting her Christian son, to exile her from the court she had fought to control. Now, those enemies watch from the shadows, understanding that their duchess is not a woman to be crossed, that her vengeance is as inevitable as winter. The torture continues for what feels like hours, though perhaps it is only minutes. Time loses meaning in places where humanity is systematically destroyed. The tongs move from shoulder to arm, from chest to abdomen, each application of heat and pressure removing another piece of the man who once was Radislav. His body becomes a canvas of horror, a map of suffering drawn in burns and torn flesh, his remaining skin slick with blood and sweat and the clear fluid that leaks from burst blisters. His screams have long since faded to whispered moans, his consciousness flickering like a candle in a storm. Finally, mercifully, his heart gives out. The body slumps forward, held upright only by the chains binding his wrists, his head hanging at an angle that suggests the final, absolute surrender of death. The executioner steps back, lowering the tongs, and the chamber falls into silence, a silence so complete it seems to press against the ears like water. Drahomíra nods once, a gesture of satisfaction, and turns away. The body will be displayed, of course, a reminder to all who might consider treachery. In Bohemia, loyalty is not requested. It is commanded and purchased in blood. The witnesses file out slowly, their faces pale, their minds struggling to reconcile what they have seen with any notion of justice or mercy. Some will remember this night for the rest of their lives, haunted by screams that echo in their dreams. Others will forget, or convince themselves they have forgotten, burying the memory beneath layers of rationalization and denial. But the truth remains, carved into history with red-hot iron. Power in the medieval world was not built on love or consent, but on the willingness to inflict suffering, to transform human beings into lessons written in agony. Drahomíra herself would not survive long after this night. Within months, her son Wenceslaus, later sainted for his piety, would fall to assassins sent by her other son, Boleslav. She would be exiled, her power stripped away, her name becoming synonymous with cruelty and pagan wickedness in Christian chronicles. History would remember her not as a duchess fighting for survival in a brutal age, but as a villain, a mother who murdered saints and tortured innocents. Perhaps she deserved this judgment. Perhaps we all do, when we choose power over mercy, when we become the monsters we claim to fight against. The chamber is empty now, save for the dead man and the lingering smell of burned flesh. The fire in the forge burns low, casting dancing shadows on walls that have witnessed too much suffering. The tongs cool slowly, their metal darkening from white to red to black, becoming just another tool, just another instrument waiting for the next time power demands its tribute in human flesh. And somewhere in the castle, Drahomíra sits alone, staring into her own fire, wondering perhaps if the screams she has caused will ever truly fall silent, or if they will follow her into whatever judgment awaits beyond the veil of death. If this story made you think, don't look away. Like, share, and subscribe for more dark truths buried beneath history's blood-stained pages, because the past isn't dead. It's still warning us. History doesn't repeat, but human nature does, and the line between justice and cruelty remains as thin as it was 1,000 years ago. Join us as we continue to unearth the brutal lessons carved into history's darkest corners.